Hi, I'm Ross Taylor. Welcome to Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space. Other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. So pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin.
The Alchemy of Love by Hilarion with Lisa Holloway. Ultimately, forgiveness is not something you give to someone else. It is the gift of setting yourself free. It is the act of letting go of anger, resentment, and pain. Yes, you do release the other person in powerful ways, but you are only releasing them from your expectations, and it is your expectations of other people that bring you so very much disappointment. Because you see, most of the people who have disappointed you were not given your version of the plan. The plan is often in your head and not shared with others until they deviate from the plan. And even then, they often don't get to hear the plan. They only get to know you are angry or refusing to speak to them because they fulfilled their role poorly. And who are they? They are reflections of you. And you place on others expectations that meet your own agenda and make you feel safe and secure in a world that you unconsciously try to control by pressing your expectations upon other people. However, since these valuable co-creators reflect back to you what you believe about yourself, they cannot help but cause you pain if you don't love who you are. Now, is this true of all of you? Yes, it is. Because in interacting with all beings around and outside of you, you are interacting with versions of yourself, evidence of your beliefs, representations of your own thoughts. You are amazing creators. In truth, you are such accomplished creators that evidence of what you believe takes place around you all of the time. And so, as I have said before, truth is in the eye of the perceiver. Your truth is as valid as another's truth, and in turn, their truth is as valid as yours. You don't often interact with people whose reality is vastly different from your own, because what you experience in your life is limited to what you believe to be true. The greater your ability to expand your perception of reality, the greater the variation of experience you find yourself exposed to. By limiting what you believe is possible, you unintentionally limit your reality. You occasionally see others whose reality seems to be more limited than your own. But if you don't all grow and expand, develop and evolve, you will not raise the vibration of your planet and improve the potential future on Earth. You are all light workers, and each of you knows that as a bringer of light, you have the desire within for service toward raising the consciousness of those on planet Earth, the desire to transcend the limitations of material existence. When another lightworker is struggling with identity or needs assistance finding his or her path or seems to be seeped in ego, take the time to give wisdom and understanding rather than judgment. Almost all ego or self-aggrandizing behavior stems from fear. Identifying and comforting that fear in someone else leads to positive forward movement for all of you. It would also be positive forward movement if your national leaders could clearly recognize the divine perfection and importance of every single soul within their realm of influence. How can they begin to see the divinity and importance of the people outside of their countries when they don't understand the individual importance of each person they govern? At what point will world leaders recognize the intrinsic value of each and every citizen? At what point will human life no longer be disposable? And once an argument starts between two warring factions, at what point do the aggressors look at one another and say, "I recognize you, for there go I"? Truly, as large and complex as the issue of saving your planet seems, it has always been an inside job. The status of your world population and your natural population has and always will be a reflection of the level of spiritual understanding within each and every one of you. Here is the good news. You are all learning through the vehicle of your mass media that there is power and influence inside each of you. You are integrating the fact that looking inward is more productive than pointing the finger outward. You are also increasing as a population in the overall desire for peace and prosperity in your world. Power to reach many people has been given to those who work with humility and devotion for the purpose of improving experience on earth. Your media has been used for spreading fear, it's true, but it is also an important method for informing and empowering people who would otherwise feel lost in the face of issues that seem too large to handle. There is positive movement taking place in the undercurrent of your mass mental and emotional environment. That undercurrent is a current of change, of recognition, and of humanity. Your biggest stumbling block on a mass scale is apathy. Apathy most often results from exhaustion in the face of insurmountable odds that seem stacked against positive change. But as people around these exhausted and distracted brethren are making changes within themselves and taking positive action in their communities, such tired souls ignite with hope. In truth, as a mass population, you are quite far from recognizing the divinity and importance of every soul on the planet. But as a whole, you are getting there, and this is the road to unconditional love and transcendence. You can walk around in your immediate environment and intentionally emanate unconditional love. But it is when you can love unconditionally in uncomfortable situations, in the presence of those you judge, or when faced with circumstances that make you feel powerless, that you experience the alchemical and transcendental influence of unconditional love. Love does indeed transform and transcend anger, loss, resentment, fear, and emotional wounds. It is the elusive magic that most of you are looking for in your search for happiness. Love's great partner is discernment. Discernment is another word for wisdom. Love in action with wisdom brings positive change to your world. Forgive the world around you. Forgive those who through their failure to meet your expectations taught you your greatest lessons about yourself. Forgive those who took more than their share, who walked away, who through fault or no fault caused you to feel empty or betrayed. Set yourself free. You will find that the world around you changes for the better in the face of such forgiveness. Love one another as we love you, and we do love you deeply. Namaste. Hilarion.
The offering you just heard was Lisa Holloway reading an excerpt from a message she channeled from Hilarion that was featured in the Sedona Journal. I'm truly honored to welcome Lisa to Sacred Sundays. Lisa is a spiritual teacher, trance channel, and visionary guide known for her work with Ascended Master Hilarion. With a background in corporate leadership, healthcare innovation, and education, she bridges the worlds of structure and spirit, helping spiritually minded individuals awaken their gifts and integrate metaphysical principles into daily life. Lisa's teachings draw on quantum consciousness, energy healing, and human potential. She is a regular contributor to the Sedona Journal of Emergence, currently compiling a book of 27 years of Hilarion's teachings and expanding her presence as a global speaker and podcast host.
Thank you so much, Ross. Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome, Lisa. I'm so glad that you could be here today with us. We just listened to a message you channeled from Hilarion, and it seems to me that this message is so timely because it really speaks to a lot of what we're going through right now in our inner and outer world. And ultimately, the channeling speaks to this work that we can do inside of ourselves that is perhaps hidden and also reflected in our outer world. Having just listened to this channeling again, what is it that speaks the loudest to you in terms of the times that we're in, and where do you see this right now playing out?
I think it's very important that that Hilarion talked about forgiveness and being able to see others' truth as valid. So I think those are important factors. And also understanding that we talked about how we are interacting with versions of ourselves, evidence of our own beliefs and representations of our own thoughts, that we are creating our reality right now. And so if we can expand our perception of reality, then we have the ability to experience greater versions or variations of experience and understand other people's reality. And ultimately, he talks about unconditional love and how we sometimes place our own expectations on other people. And those are the things that can disappoint us because other people don't know what our expectations are.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you. For me, what we're talking about here is shadow work, and shadow work has been such an important part of my journey and my growth. And it's this idea of, instead of pointing fingers outward to what we see, this idea of pointing inward and looking at what's happening within us and shifting that, which then on a higher level shifts the reality that plays out in front of us. What Hilarion spoke of is so profound. How do you think about it in terms of it being a big ask in terms of what people need to do to look inward instead of outward?
Well, I think looking inward is the journey of the soul here, in that at some point we have to understand our own influence on our experience and how our thoughts and our emotions, our feelings and our expectations and our beliefs impact what occurs around us and how we drive our own experience through those factors or through those influences. So I think it's critical that in a lifetime, in a given lifetime, we start to realize or understand our own impact on the world and on others as we co-create. So we're here together and we are co-creating, but our beliefs and our subconscious thoughts are so powerful in creating what we experience.
I love that. And what you said about our subconscious thoughts or playing out our experience, I see that as being so true, because we each have our own reality that we're trying to live out, but we also have the unconscious past that's speaking out in the present. And so what you have is these different layers of ourselves that are trying to be conscious and trying to play things out differently, but both people might not be a willing participant in that exchange, which means that the only person that we can really focus on and take accountability for is ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. I thought it was also interesting, his thoughts about world leaders and the thought around how can a national leader hold value for those outside of their own country or globally if they don't hold value for each individual soul, that each individual soul under their influence is equally worthy and valuable.
Yeah, I too was drawn in by that piece as well. And it's just what a a beautiful shift in perspective. And how do you relate that to what's going on? Not that we want to go down the political conversation, but that's so opposite to what is playing out in our everyday right now, in my belief. Would you agree?
I agree that's true. I also think that it's influencing that the behavior that we see as opposite to that concept is influencing the thoughts and feelings, acts, and behavior of other leaders who are more strongly than ever rising up against those thoughts, learning from watching what's happening. And people in the world are beginning to understand that they don't want that, and that the concepts, the way that these concepts are playing out in reality, these concepts of, my nation first, only certain people matter, and seeing how that plays out, I think, is causing a rise in the opposite perspective. I think people are getting especially world leaders, are getting very careful about what they're advocating for.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also unifying against those thoughts that are divisive.
And what you're pointing to is a radical shift as well. Because, one of the things I'm realizing as you're speaking is when we're in our own experience, it's hard to see it playing out in our relationships. And so the beauty of this external play, if you will, that's playing out in front of us, is that we can start to see ourselves in it in a way that we might not be able to when we're entrenched in our everyday relationships. So, so it is enlightening, and it is bringing attention to aspects of ourselves that we might want to change or see. But it's so much easier to point the finger rather than looking at ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hilarion, he stresses self-reflection and forgiveness as a catalyst for change. And he highlights the importance of self-awareness along with forgiveness in personal and global transformation as well. And then recognizing that personal flaws in others allows for self-improvement and environmental change. So recognizing flaws outside of us, actually, if we turn and look within ourselves, that's where the change occurs. Mm-hmm. And that forgiveness is primarily a gift to ourselves, fostering personal positive transformation.
Mm-hmm. And the channeling opened with speaking to forgiveness. And in my work with clients, often that word holds a lot of weight and can be somewhat triggering. What would you say to someone who is really struggling with the concept of forgiveness?
I would let them know that the past is gone, and the person that hurt them and the activities that occurred, they're no longer in their present moment right now. All that is left is the residual thoughts, beliefs, and feelings caused by the harm that was felt at the time, the harm and the pain. So what's remaining is that vibration almost of the pain, and the memory of the pain, and what's stored in the body from the pain. But the past is gone. And pain, there's a pearl in the pain. And the pearl of wisdom in the pain is the main opportunity to gain strength from what occurred. And to move forward, we have to stop looking at the pain as a continual, perpetual wound that continually and perpetually harms us. In order to grow from it, to get stronger, we have to recognize, who can I become by overcoming the illusion that this trauma told me about myself? What am I carrying about myself? What am I believing about myself because of this trauma that isn't true? that isn't even true. The reason we're still mad, the reason we're still upset, is that we're still feeling wounded. It's still hurting us to this day. We can replay it and feel it again and feel it again. But at some point, we have to find that pearl in the pain of wisdom and move past that and become stronger, recognizing that we are more than what the message was in that pain that told us something about ourselves that we are now going to transcend. We will transcend that belief because it's not true. It's not true. And we're often wounded, very wounded, by people who we trust or love or don't even know, who do things that harm our sense of self. But at some point, we have to step up for ourselves, stand up for ourselves, and walk away from that pain.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. And certainly I can relate to all of what you said so beautifully in terms of times when I've come to that crossroads of like, enough is enough. I can't go on like this, and making that choice for myself that something's needs to change. And, you know, to use the analogy of the pearl, it's like the grain of sand that's causing the, you know,
Irritation.
irritation. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for, is the grain of sand that we need to search for. It's like, why do I keep coming to these places, and why do I keep playing this out in my everyday? Because it's not helping me to move forward. But I also know that that's a very humbling moment. You know, those are moments that have brought me to my knees, and because there's something about staying in the place of pointing fingers, and to actually transcend that is a powerful step. But once you do, the impacts are very great.
Yes. Yes. And it's important to be able to say, in regards to the person or people, let's say a person who's hurt you, and, you know, in the ether, so to speak, not literally, but I can no longer carry you with me anymore.
Yeah.
You are too heavy, and I cannot carry you, and I need to let you go. I need to let this go. Whatever you did, I can assume that you were doing the best you could at the time, or whatever your intentions were, that's about you. That was about you. If your intention was to harm me, that was still about you, not about me. And at some point, I have to let this go because I cannot carry you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Hilarion also spoke about unconditional love towards the end. And
Yes.
I wonder what you would like to share with our listeners about unconditional love.
Sure. So Hilarion talks a lot about the power of unconditional love. And we hear a lot about it within metaphysics. And what he's stressing is that unconditional love, coupled with discernment, which he calls wisdom, is presented as the ultimate force for positive change. You know, he presents that as that unconditional love coupled with wisdom and discernment is the ultimate force for positive change, and that it transmutes negativity and leads to healing and transcendence or transformation. The excerpt that we heard comes from an article called The Alchemy of Love. So the alchemy of love is that when you apply unconditional love with wisdom to a situation, that's where alchemy takes place. And it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a force we need more of.
Absolutely. And it's ultimately shadow work comes across as something that is about looking into the darkness, but it's really about revealing the light. And what you just spoke to about tapping into unconditional love and shifting that paradigm is about revealing the light that is behind a situation.
Yes. Yeah. One thing he says in the in the article is he says, love does indeed transform and transcend anger, loss, resentment, fear, and emotional wounds.
Mm.
So that's a huge power to heal and elevate vibration or
Absolutely.
frequency.
Because they're energies that are just not compatible to each other. They can't exist in the same space. Just like you can't laugh and be angry at the same time.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to let it go in order to laugh.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, we have a few minutes left, and in that few minutes, I would love to hear about, what is it right now in your work that is sparking joy?
Working with individuals, um, and groups as they grow, watching people have aha moments, watching people take control of their own self-doubt, um, to launch themselves into what they want to do, whether it's business, whether it's learning healing, whether it's learning how to use their own intuition. That is really what excites me, is helping other people to feel like they are worthy of their own spiritual gifts and abilities, and to be out there being of service to others. And that that everyone, particularly people feeling that draw, I think some people are actually drawn to use their spiritual gifts. I think everyone has them, but not everyone feels the deep desire to use them in service to healing themselves and healing others. And to watch people step into their confidence and to start speaking their truth, is very fulfilling for me.
I love that. And I have to say that I've been in Nanaimo now for, I think it's about 4 months. And Lisa, you've been such a tremendous part of that journey. And you've provided community, you've provided connection, and I've witnessed your mentorship and your care for each individual that's in front of you. And you are a champion for every one of them. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness. And I've been a recipient of that as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And that means a lot to me. I enjoy it. It's a community. We inspire each other. We make space for each other. We hold space for each other. And it's a beautiful learning environment. And I've been very happy to get to know you, Ross.
Oh, thank you. So I'd like to close with a question that might change over time, but I want to ask every guest a question at the end of our session. And the question today is, what's one simple way someone could connect with the sacred today?
One simple way that someone could connect with the sacred today would be to find a place of stillness, whether it's outside in nature or whether it's in your own bedroom or in your living room. Get away from the noise and distractions and conversation, but be with yourself. Be with you. Find quiet space or space with music in nature, but sit with yourself and close your eyes and feel your own connection to divinity. Just breathe. That's all you have to do. You're not doing anything. You're just being. You're simply feeling. Simply feel and be and breathe. And allow yourself to begin to feel through the center of your being that you actually are not alone. You might be sitting alone. You might be in the physical world sitting in a room technically alone. But when you close your eyes and you connect to the sacred or to all that is, you begin to realize that you are not alone, that you are connected to all things. So I suggest people try that. Just try it.
I love that. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Lisa, where would be the best place for people to find out about you? And we'll make sure that that information gets into the show notes.
Okay. You can find me at lisaholloway.net. There are places, various ways there to be on my newsletter. And my newsletter will tell you about events and provide links to free gifts, information, articles, and opportunities for learning.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Lisa, it was so great to share this cup of tea with you. And hopefully it's not the last one. I'm sure that we'll have other conversations in the future. And anything you'd like to say as we close?
What I'd like to say is that each person listening to this podcast is a divine being of light. And I know that might sound very woo-woo, but it's very true. And that you are a concentrated intelligence and light, and that you radiate out into the world around you. And you have so much more control over your reality than you might imagine. So watch your thoughts, pay attention to your thoughts and your feelings and your intention, and know that you're putting those out into the quantum field all the time, and that the quantum field, or all that is responding to you and responding to what you're putting out into the world in the form of thoughts and feelings and desire and expectations and beliefs. So if you can understand what you're putting out into the field of all that is, if you can understand what that is, what you're putting out, you'll understand how it is that your experience is showing up the way that it is.
I love that.
That's what I'll leave everybody with.
That's perfect. All right, Lisa, thanks again for spending this time with me and having this conversation. And we'll do it again at some point.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining us here on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. You can find more Sacred Sundays episodes, as well as other conversations from the Sacred Village podcast at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Feel free to share this episode with someone who might need it. Until next time, may your Sunday be slow and sacred. Bye for now.